Welcome! Today we're reacting to why Gen Z culture is basically medieval China by medieval mindset. Let's begin. Okay, I don't know much about China.
I was thinking about
I
it
know a
and
bit
I
about Gen
realized, you
Z.
know who these
So yeah,
young Gen Zers
let's find
remind me
out.
of? The Song Dynasty from medieval China. Anyone else been feeling this way lately?
No.
It's just me?
Yeah,
Well,
you.
let me explain what I mean. There's all this new data to suggest that younger people these days want to spend their money on experiences, not physical items.
Well, yes, because everything is expensive and items tend to break, especially nowadays. Like, okay, hear me out. You buy a TV, it breaks in like what? 4 years' time? Actually, maybe not. We don't really use TVs. You buy a phone, it's gonna destroy itself in like 3 years' time. What's the purpose of that? Instead, you can like take a vacation to, I don't know, uh, Greece or something, see Acropole or something, you know. And remember, have photos of that, and just say to your friends, "I've been to Greece," and they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's cool," and stuff like that. You know, that's much better than saying, "Oh yeah, I bought a new iPhone, it broke," after like 3 years' time. You know.
I think it reflects this growing hunger for third spaces. And if you don't know what third spaces are,
I mean, that's true that there's a quote unquote crisis of third spaces. They don't exist anymore. Everything is expensive because everything is expensive. That's why they don't really exist. Like, if you go to a place, you have to pay money to do anything basically. And if you just go there and don't pay money, you're gonna get probably kicked out. Is this video in full? Yeah, it is. It's 720. It's fine.
Break it down for you.
720 is
Basically,
fine.
the two main
I was like,
spaces are
is this
home
not
and
good?
work, and historically, the third space was somewhere in the middle. Maybe it
Okay,
was
yeah.
the bar, or the guild hall, or the tea
The pub.
house.
I mean, the pub still functions in the UK at least.
Have all but gone extinct recently, or have become prohibitively expensive, and young people
Oh yeah,
are feeling
yeah.
it. They want the third spaces back. This maybe feels like a very 21st century vibes-based phenomenon.
Mean, the thing is, like, even if you create third spaces for young people, they would still prefer to sit at home and use their phone, and that would be it basically. Unless you have like the social types, then the social types would be very happy about that. They might even go. But the not really social types like me, I wouldn't go.
But it's actually extremely Chinese. The Song Dynasty was the first era in history to have what we would consider as a lifestyle culture, where the cities were actually designed for pleasure and snacking. And
remember when that was a thing? Remember when cities were designed for more than just like you sleep, you go to work? Imagine that.
and nighttime
I could never.
Just like so many downtown areas are today. There was this 12th century writer named Meng Yuanlao who wrote this fascinating memoir called The Record of a Dream of Splendor at the Eastern Capital. It's one of these shocking works from the Middle Ages that I love reading because it seems like it was written by someone recently instead of someone 1,000 years ago. He writes this whole nostalgic reminiscence of the Song capital city, Kaifeng, and talks all about the 24-hour tea houses and...
Oh, remember this 24-hour, I don't know, Tesco Express? Remember those? Remember like 24-hour McDonald's or something? They don't think, I don't think they exist anymore in some places. You know,
performers and storytellers and the specific vibes of the different districts.
Honestly, I wish 24-hour things would come back.
I'll just quote the full thing here and you tell me if this sounds familiar. When the guests arrive, a single person holding chopsticks and a menu questions all of the seated guests. The men of the capital are extravagant and they demand 100 different things. Some hot, some cold, some warm, some regular, some extremely cold, and things like noodles laced with lean and fatty meat. Everyone orders something different. The waiter takes the orders and draws near a counter where he stands in line and recites the orders off from the start.
That's McDonald's. Like, if you add like the machine where you like, you know, tap the thing, you know, what was like the auto cashier, I think, I don't know, where you just have the menu and you select like, oh yeah, Big Mac, yep, fries, yep, Coke, pay, and then you go to the line and be like number 76, and you pick up the order and you go and eat.
I don't know, this to me literally sounds like a night out in 2026. I'm positive this isn't what you would picture in your head when you hear the word medieval. Also, just to give you a historical timeline here, this is basically China on the eve of the eventual Mongol invasion, and it's a time
that's China 1,000 years ago,
starting to flourish, and it's becoming a core identity for younger people. Bringing it back to Gen Z, I've noticed that there's this big obsession with what I would call curated living. I don't know, maybe I'm not describing it accurately, but it is super vibes based, like life is one big Pinterest board. Think of terms like cozy games or the
Yeah.
aesthetics of going on a walk around the city with
Dark Academia.
an iced matcha. It's this sort of return to
Dark
Song
Academia
Dynasty
chat.
Scholar
Oh wait, I don't have chat.
gentleman urban
I
ideal.
forgot I'm not
Your
streaming
status
this.
isn't just
Like,
about money, although that'll obviously
this is
always
off
be
stream.
important. It's about your taste. Back then, it was about your taste in tea and incense and interior design. Now it's more so about your taste in underground music and
Yeah, I think I prefer the tea.
niche TikTokers. The youth don't want to be told
Yeah.
what's cool
I
anymore.
still
by
prefer the tea.
commercials and MTV with big corporations calling the shots. They want to create their own experiences. They want to get medieval Chinese again. Also semi-relatedly,
They want to get medieval Chinese. That's a statement.
there's been a big surge in traditional Chinese medicine trends among Westerners on TikTok recently. You see it everywhere.
Okay, so you put in a fruit. It's gonna be very soft. Actually, this is probably like going to taste pretty nice as well. It's going to be very fragrant, I believe.
Where a number of Chinese American influencers have been sort of introducing these ancient concepts like Qigong practice or drinking hot water instead of cold water.
Wait a
using
minute.
These ancient concepts.
Socks, house slippers, no feet on the cold floor. I think you can just live without the socks. Just have house slippers.
Like
They're good
Qigong
enough.
practice or drinking hot water instead of cold water, and the internet has been going crazy for it. So maybe medieval China is making a comeback in more ways than one. We won't just focus on the Song Dynasty here. There's more to China in the Middle Ages than just that one period.
There is
but I
more
do
to
have a
China,
few
in
more
fact.
Song boxes I want to check before we continue. Before we
Yep.
do that, just a quick plug. If you
Oh,
like my content,
Patreon.
you should definitely join the Patreon link in the description. You'll get access to the official Medieval Mindset podcast with weekly episodes, the Medieval Mindset book
Yes.
club, voting rights on topics and titles and thumbnails,
Yes.
essential medieval history reading lists,
Yes.
special videos that get
Okay.
posted on the channel. So sign up now, and
Yes.
if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that as well. Back to the
Okay.
video. Maybe you've heard of the
Ah,
modern phenomenon
we're back.
of looks maxing, or maybe
Looks
you
maxing,
aren't
yes.
chronically online and have no idea what I'm talking about. Basically, looks maxing is the new version of the age-old concept of getting hot, although it goes way beyond diet and exercise and a little Botox. Young people, I would say especially young men, are exploring all of these scientific
I like how most of this is like a chin training or like, I don't know,
avenues to try
teeth
to
whitening. This is actually important. Teeth whitening is
improve
good.
their looks. The
What did they do?
most are exploring
back.
all of these
Chin
scientific
tucks,
avenues
white
to
teeth
try and
whitening,
improve their
yes.
look.
Did he just put like a LED light into his mouth?
The most medieval seeming looks maxing method is called bone smashing, and it's been promoted over and
Yeah.
over again by probably the most famous looks maxer, a 19-year-old streamer named Clavicular.
Do you know who that is? I have no idea who that is. Never heard of him.
Looks maxer, bone smashing, clavicular. I understand this all might sound ridiculous to you, but stick with me because it's interesting. Also, don't you want to understand the youth? Anyway, the way
Not
Clavicular
really.
describes it, bone smashing is when you take a tiny hammer
Yeah.
and tap hard along your cheekbones and your jawbone. It causes a temporary swelling that lasts for
Yeah.
a few hours and makes those bones look more defined. So it's something you might do just
So you're going on a night out. You want to get some ladies. You're gonna tap 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 even more, and then you're gonna look like a Giga Chad. That's how you do it. Yeah.
before a night out so you can look more masculine.
Yeah,
than
there
the
you go.
ladies you meet. Maybe at this point this isn't a crazy revelation, but it turns out young guys in medieval China had the same insecurities that modern men do, and they even went about similar methods of soothing their anxieties. During the Song Dynasty period, there was this really
History repeats itself.
interesting tension between the white
Uh,
class, who were the more literary, refined scholars, and the
Yeah.
blue class, who were the more martial and physical warrior caste. Depending on
Okay.
which group you belong to, you'd basically looks max to make sure your outward appearance matched what you represented. So that meant young
Okay, let me translate this to modern day, not modern day, modern day. Yeah. Nowadays you have the Giga Chad, the gym guy, manly man, and then you have the soft boy that wants a goth mummy. There you go. That's how you do it. The scholar class is, the soft boys, and then the Giga Chads are the, warriors, there you
Men who
go.
were part of the scholarly class went to these extreme lengths to achieve this sort of refined, pale,
I like how he has like those beads. They make him look like, yeah, look at me, I'm rich.
physical aesthetic with slender features to essentially highlight the fact that they never had to work with their hands. They'd even use specific diets and cosmetic aspects of traditional Chinese medicine to maintain this look that would instantly signal to everyone that they were part of the intelligentsia. Those in the military class, basically who we would consider to be the modern day
You can also go the other way around the warrior class. You can be big, buff, and fat. Well, kind of fat, like not too fat, just a bit fat. You can be athlete fat.
focused primarily on bone strength. I don't know, maybe that sounds familiar to you. It wasn't just
What the hell
about
did he
muscle,
do?
although of course
Honestly, that picture like 1 second ago, kind of worrying,
It was about the chi energy within and physical density. You wanted to look
the
like a
chi
brick
energy.
wall. That was kind of the physique they were shooting for. It's
Okay.
important to note, of course, that they weren't hitting themselves in the face with hammers like modern looks maxers. Their routine usually included things like hitting sandbags or poles to increase their bone density. There was a 20th century French scholar named Jacques Journet who specialized in Chinese history, and he talked a lot about how these aspects of appearance became kind of a coded language of your class. In the incredibly hierarchical society of China, if you didn't
because if you have certain features, you are assigned a class. It's a symbolic way of identifying people's classes, basically. Like, if you see someone wearing a suit in the middle of like a busy street, you're gonna be assuming he's one of the business people from nearby business places, basically. And you're gonna think he might be rich because he's wearing a fancy suit, not like a regular kind of suit. Right?
Have the specific look, you were culturally invisible. It seems like a lot of young men and young women too feel this way today. If you just look up the term looks maxing on YouTube or TikTok, the insecurity is overwhelming, but it's understandable. We were all vulnerable teenagers once too. But you see these
chat. There's no chat. But no, you have to look as if you were photoshopped.
Each other ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 and recommending which specific steroids or look.
I hear someone drilling. I hope it's not heard on my microphone.
Maxing techniques to try so they can bring their flagging features up to speed. This includes peptides, which as far as I understand are these amino acid based performance enhancers, and the use of GLP.
Peptides are amino acids indeed.
Which I feel like people associate with an older audience, but there seem to be a shocking amount of young people taking them. The medieval Chinese...
I mean, yeah, because it's like an easy way to lose the excess fat, basically, That's why young people take it, because it's like going to the gym and training yourself takes freaking decades. And when you want to be like, I want to be a little bit thinner, just like, boom. You get the needle, boom. You remove you remove the fat in one way or another.
We're actually big on this kind of thing too. They were obsessed with elixirs made from rare minerals and herbs that were designed to lighten the body and extend life. A lot of these were incredibly dangerous and even included mercury, and I'm sure in the next 10 years or so there will be a bunch of studies showing the horrific...
My favorite Chinese invention, mercury poisoning.
Side effects of looks maxing and peptides. The idea behind this medieval China...
My second favorite invention, it comes from the UK. It's called lead poisoning. I love how we used to use like dangerous materials for like, to look pretty, basically. And then you just realize, oh yeah, we just like, poisoned ourselves kind of using the freaking cosmetics.
These looks maxing was essentially the same as the idea behind the modern version, using some kind of external chemistry or method to hack your biological limits and achieve this sort of superior physical state. The Chinese wrote a lot of things down, and thankfully a lot of them have survived over the centuries. Like the 7th century physician Sun Simao's essential formulas worth 1,000 gold pieces. It was basically this manual for longevity beauty and physical refinement. And if you're familiar with the European concept
Ooh.
of balancing the four
Very
humors,
not good
this was
picture.
along the
I'm
same
scared.
lines. Samao describes the body as this chemical system that can be balanced or enhanced with specific substances. This idea went even further with the medieval Chinese concept of Naidan, or internal alchemy, which taught that the body was composed of three main ingredients: qi, jing, and shen, that could be
I heard of
forged
that
into a
once.
golden cinder if you were locked in enough on your physical discipline. Locked in is a good term.
Wait. Can I turn myself into a golden man?
To use here, because this sounds just like the trend of locking in that has been popular.
Can I do alchemy with myself?
If you're not familiar, it just means cutting off outside distractions and focusing intently on some kind of personal goal. So maybe getting your side hustle off the ground, or working out more regularly, or whatever. It's become
You have to focus. You have to focus on winning in that Valorant match or League of Legends match, you know?
sort of a cult online, especially among the gym community. And based on what you see from these fitness influencers, it's like your pump and your physique are proof of an internal moral victory. Like a victory of the will over the laziness of your base body.
I prefer my lazy body, I believe.
Literally thought the same exact way. They knew that their physical health and their outward radiance was proof that they had successfully cultivated their soul in a way.
I like how this video so far is very man-centric. Like, I feel like this is because maybe there is more records of what men did in medieval China than what women did back in the days, but like, that sounds like I'm talking about a decade ago. That's like 1,000 years ago. But yeah, like it feels like we lost a lot of like what women used to do back in those days and stuff like that. Like, I mean, maybe they also used, I don't know, the mercury to look better or something. I don't know.
Way more into fitness now than they did even 10 years ago. I'm not sure if that's a COVID thing, but I love to see it. There seems to be a lot of conversation around the idea.
Go back.
I'm not sure if
she is posing like she's a JoJo character, you know?
That's a
kind of based.
But I love to see it. There seems to be a lot of conversation around the idea that your body is the one status symbol you can't really buy. You can buy a Bugatti or a nice watch or whatever, but you can only achieve a truly amazing physique through countless hours in the gym, so it's really the most impressive thing you can have. There's
the historical idea of like, your body is your temple,
also,
you know?
this quote from the video game Disco Elysium, where a bouncer says to the main character, "Your body betrays your degeneracy." And that always sticks in my head when I don't want to go to the gym. I just felt like including that. I like tossing random tidbits into these videos. Now, most of what I've been talking about so far has come from the Song Dynasty, which lasted for a few centuries right smack dab in the middle of what we would consider the Middle Ages. But the Middle Ages lasted almost 1,000 years, so what about the rest of medieval China?
Oh, there's still more. That's good.
What? I'm really glad you asked that. First of all, the Middle Ages happened differently in China than they did in Europe. Basically, even though there are quite a few Song Dynasty parallels, Gen Z is actually in more of a late Ming phase. That's right, I said it. In the earlier Tang Dynasty,
Ming China is
which
pretty recent, I would say.
AD, your identity was defined by your clan or your rank in the military, basically how people's identities have been defined for most of human history. You were a cog in the great chain of being, and the same is true.
You're a cog in the
machine. Feudal system put in place by the divine mover. By the late Ming period, which went all the way into the 17th century, there was this rise in individualism that started to run so deep that it turned into the same kind of identity crises and obsession with labels that we see among Gen Z today. You see, Chinese society had reached a level of complexity to such a point that people started to define themselves by their personal quirks and not their family or job. So instead of saying, "I'm a soldier," a late Ming youngin might say, "I'm a connoisseur of rare incense who suffered..."
I'm a connoisseur. There we go. See, I like the idea of this because it's more defining than "I'm a accountant." I'm like, yeah, you're an accountant, great. Fantastic. Tell me more about yourself then. And then when you say something like, "Oh yes, I'm a connoisseur of animes and mangas, indeed," and then I'm like, okay, well, what's your favorite anime then? Yeah, there you go. it just makes like a big difference because like, if you tell someone your profession, you're either gonna think, does this person like their profession and that's why they identify with it, or is there nothing else to them and that's why they identify with their profession? And then when you say something like your hobby or something like that, then you're like, okay, they have a hobby, they have a interest. I know a bit about that hobby or an interest. We can talk about that, maybe. See, it's more engaging, I would say.
You'd be hard pressed to meet a young person today who primarily identifies by their profession or their
Yep.
nationality. Find me a 22-year-old who introduces themselves as Garrett the American Plumber, and I would genuinely be shocked.
That sounds depressing.
I'm sure Garrett will now show up in my comments to prove me wrong because that's how YouTube works. Instead, just like the Ming youth, young people now might identify as a neurodivergent creative with a hyperfixation on looks maxing. It's this obsession with self, and it can be dangerous because you stop viewing yourself as part of a wider community and start squeezing yourself into these ever smaller and more specific boxes. The late Ming period was a kind of renaissance that ultimately failed. It was this explosion of individual expression and art and looks maxing and everything else, but it was cut short by the Manchu conquest in 1644.
That happened.
We're going to see something similar with Gen Z in the coming years. They're in this period of extreme self-expression and pursuit of individual destiny right before a massive systemic reset comes. Maybe
AI is coming for us. They took our jobs. Something.
Maybe that's AI, maybe it's something else. Only time.
Wait, no. Aliens are coming. They're coming from space. The comet is about to come with them.
Anyway,
Comet? Asteroid? Meteor? I have no idea.
For our next comparison. I want to go back to those Song Dynasty third spaces we talked about earlier. One of them was the Watsi, or the Pleasure Precinct, which sounds pretty good already. Basically, during the Song Dynasty, the government moved away from these strictly managed...
Do we go back to, like... I like how we went to, like, the recent China to, like, back in the centuries ago.
residential wards and allowed for the growth of pleasure precincts, or Watsi. If you've ever seen The Wire, this was kind of like the medieval Chinese equivalent of the Amsterdam experiment. The Watsi were these chaotic 24-hour zones where all the basic social rules were temporarily suspended, kind of like the medieval equivalent of the unregulated internet. Now, if you let a bunch of young men loose in an area with no rules, the first thing they'll be interested in is prostitution, but in the modern day, you already check that box with online adult content and gooning.
Yes.
After those urges are satisfied, literally the very next thing they want is to gamble. It's a tale as old as time, and it was a big problem in the song.
See, to make man happy, you need woman, gambling, and alcohol, and food. Most importantly, food. Everything else comes after the food. Then man is happy, man is satisfied, man doesn't need anything anymore. Except like the other type of man that does need more.
Dynasty pleasure districts, and it's an even bigger problem now on private gambling Discord servers and even huge...
There's private gambling Discord servers? That's the first time I heard about that. Never knew it. Interesting.
Accessible apps like DraftKings and BetDSI. I see.
Oh, actually, maybe another time. But I saw something about gambling that you can bet on something that Riot Games is creating. Their fighting game. You're gonna be able to, like, you know, what it's called. You're gonna be able to bet on players when there's a tournament, and then they probably gonna introduce that in Valorant and League in the future. So that's interesting.
There's so many young people now who are almost turning online gambling into a sort of career path. And guess what? They did the same thing back in the day too.
I mean, yeah, obviously you're gonna create gambling turn gambling into a career path, because everything else is BS, basically. Like, I would rather go all in and just be like, okay, I'm all in, double or nothing. And if it's double, then I'm happy. If it's nothing, then I'm screwed. You know?
See all kinds of criticisms from these Song Dynasty officials like Sima Guang, who laments that young men are abandoning the plow and the book to chase the flip of the die. There's this modern sociologist named Beverly Yuen Thompson, who writes great stuff about subcultures. And she's noted that fringe groups usually start to form when the mainstream promise of hard work equals success is broken. In the song...
Well, yeah, true, because it is
In
broken.
Dynasty, your ticket to success was passing the Imperial exam, but you could study 30 years just to fail an exam that only had a 1% pass rate.
You could go to university, study engineering, do undergrad, grad, postgrad, have a PhD under your belt, and then you're gonna go into engineering, and someone's gonna be like, you're not practical enough. You know too much theory. I need someone who's more practical, and you're gonna be like, oh my fucking god.
That's a bad bet. Young people now are seeing the same thing. Their parents bought houses and supported an entire family.
Yes, you could. You remember that time you could buy a house for McDonald's wages? You cannot do
on a
that.
modest single income, and now they can barely afford their rent. In this kind of paradigm, why wouldn't you open up DraftKings and put everything you own on some ridiculous parlay? Why wouldn't you dump your whole portfolio into some meme coin in the hopes it'll take you to the moon? We might think of this younger generation of gambling addicts as just...
Wait, why not create a YouTube channel and react to stuff and hope for the best? That's me. That's me. That's my gamble.
Lobes aren't fully developed yet. That's definitely
part of it. If I could like find a place in Europe, we don't really have much places like that. But like, if I could find a place where I could gamble using mahjong, then yeah, that would be a place for me. I'm pretty decent at mahjong, honestly.
But they're also making a desperate, calculated attempt to exit a system that has already failed them. Going back to the WotC, the pleasure precincts, the reason they never fully took over society is because you had to physically go to them. There was a spirit of anonymity. Basically, what happens in the WotC stays in the WotC.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
But you still had to go engage in these acts in a somewhat public place and deal with the shame of that.
If like, see, when you have like a collectivist communities, like let's say there's a village, let's say like 10-hour walk away from WotC, and then you have like two people from the same village at the same time in that like WotC, like pleasure district. I'm gonna call that pleasure district, okay? See, one is there for gambling, the other one is there to cheat on his wife. The guy gambling saw the guy that is cheating on his wife. He's gonna spread the whole the whole fact about that in the village, and it's like that's not good. You don't want your wife knowing what happened over there.
Now, with the internet, young people can indulge in all of their most base desires without ever even getting off the couch.
True.
It can literally cost them their entire future. It's worth noting, too, that when you have a bunch of...
What do you mean it can cost me my entire future? I heard it's for free.
Young, desperate people gathering in one place for a set objective, it can create a sort of ideological powder keg. So in the WotC, these guys formed gambling brotherhoods, and the Song Penal Code tried constantly to break them up because they feared the brotherhoods were becoming more loyal to each other than to the emperor. Now you might get into a private Discord server ostensibly to do some gambling and trade some insider tips, and next thing you know, you're radicalized into committing some horrific public act of terror. This feels like a good place to land the plane, because the main point I want to make with these videos is that time is a flat circle, and we're...
It is. Honestly, like, watching this video is like, oh yeah, I heard of that. Yeah, and we are repeating. Yeah. It's coming again. Yeah.
Essentially repeating the patterns of the past over and over again. There's the old saying that those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, but it seems like even when we do study history, we're powerless not to make the same mistakes. The difference now, of course, is that these things are happening on a massive global scale with the full weight of tech companies and government institutions behind them. A soldier in the Song Dynasty might drunkenly head to the WotC and lose his monthly wages, and that was it. A young 20-something now might obsessively bet his entire savings on an app on his phone and ruin his whole life before it's even started.
What do you mean? He's trying his best. I mean, it's like, okay, if you put all in and fail at like age 20, you can still bounce back because you're going to go to your dad and say, Father, I need to stay at home. I'm gonna work and pay your rent. Just let me use my room once again, please.
This is why we need to pay attention to these trends and recognize that even though human behavior hasn't changed, how we respond to it can. But what do you think? Has this video found you at a very medieval Chinese time in your life? Let
Not
me know in the
really.
comments. As always, I'm John.
I
This has
mean,
been
except the gambling part, maybe.
Medieval Mindset, and remember, the past isn't gone, it's simply waiting to be rediscovered.
Ah, yes. The past repeats itself. Very interesting video. Honestly, very interesting video. I quite enjoyed it. It was very interesting for me because, like, I didn't know much about China, medieval China. In fact, I know a bit about Ming. I didn't know much about Ming. Like, the best I can say is like, oh, I know what like politically happened. Not really what it, like this. Like, when it comes to history, I never really cared about stuff that like happened to people at the time, like what they did and stuff like that. That's like, yeah, that's like not my thing, you know. I'm more of the guy that's like, ah, yes, this war happened because of this, and it ended up like this, and then there was this thing that happened because of this and that. Yes, and those countries split. Yeah, I'm that kind of like history person when it comes to stuff, you know. But yeah, this was very interesting, very entertaining as well. It really shows how like everything just like goes in circles, basically, like historically, you know. Like we never learn from history, basically. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, well, my video, leave a like, comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, the one I watched, there's the link in description, and you're gonna leave a like. Actually, I'm gonna leave a like here because it was very good, very good, a very good video. And yeah, subscribe to the channel. Actually, I'm gonna subscribe to the channel as well. Maybe there's going to be more like videos like this because like I was literally like I said, I was never into like the history of like people. I would say the people's history. I was more into like, you know, the generic history. But yeah, but this is interesting. I wanted to see more videos that go over like the people's history, I would say, maybe in terms of like medieval times and how it like compares to nowadays and stuff like that. Like maybe a bit of economic stuff, you know, who knows. But yeah, this was interesting, very interesting, and yeah, I enjoyed it. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.